Madhava Guranga? You see that verse board? Could you move it somewhere so that more people can sit and see? Yeah, that just like, find another place for it. Thank you very much. Mukunda Datta? Mukunda Datta, nice to see you. Big surprise? Surprise! Where'd you parachute in from? Where'd you come from? Uh-huh. Coincidence, Krishna. Festival of the Holy Name. We'll have to insert you somewhere in the schedule somehow. We'll figure something out. For those of you that may not have been with us this morning, we discussed, the topic was the advent of Nama Sankirtan. We went to the Padma Purana and various scriptures. We spoke about Nam Alvar and his 10 verses predicting in Kali Yuga what would take place. Narottam Das Thakur's wonderful song, similarly speaking, the misfortune of not accepting that chanting of the holy name to awaken the position of service to Radha and Krishna. Of course he did, but he was speaking in that mood, in the mood of total humility, and so forth. So the Ut Kirtan, Uchita is a phrase used in Padma Purana, loud or audible chanting, and how it benefits not only the chanter but other living entities that may hear the chanting, the sound of the holy name. So now we're going to be discussing these excellences of the holy name. Specifically, it's the first verse of ISKCON, and one of the benefits of hearing this is your attention goes to that which you value. Yes? Mother values her child. A miser values his money. The athlete values winning. The warrior values being valorous. And that which you value is where your attention goes. You know this wonderful, most of the devotees know this wonderful story. Sanatana Goswami and his sparsha money, his touchstone. I'll quickly say it for those of you that may not know the story. In Vrindavan, there's different versions of how the story is told. One is a Shaivite Brahmin, but a Brahmin who was poor was concerned about his poverty, and he heard through the grapevine that Sanatana Goswami had a touchstone. And he thought, Sanatana Goswami's a very charitable person. If I explain to him my impoverished condition, maybe he'll give me that touchstone in charity. So he went. Long story, keeping it short. Sanatana Goswami said, sure, I have a touchstone, and I'll be glad to give it to you. You'll find it over there in the rubbish pile. Those of you that are from India, you know what that means. It's over there in the rubbish pile. So the Brahmin went and searched, and he found the touchstone. He wanted to be sure it worked, so he went back to his home and took some base metal and touched the base metal and touchstone, and turned into gold. And he went here and there, and he wasn't poor anymore. He had so much gold. But he was a Brahmin, a little greedy, but he was a Brahmin. And he started thinking, well, wait a minute, if he's got the touchstone in the rubbish pile, he doesn't value it very much. He must have something more valuable. So we ventured back to Sanatana Goswami's ashram. Do you have something more valuable? Can you give me that? Sure. On one condition. Take the touchstone and throw it in the Jamuna. So you can't get it back again. Not just let it go, but can't get it back again. Then I'll give you the more valuable thing. So he looked at the touchstone and he trusted Sanatana. He had faith in Sanatana. He wouldn't cheat him. So he threw the touchstone in the Jamuna and he gave him the holy name. Because it's far more valuable than anything. This advent of the holy name is something so wonderful we don't even know how to estimate how wonderful. Because we calculate on, the wrong criterion about things because of conditioning. So the excellences tell us something about the value. This is from the question this morning, why? Why? Why are we chanting? Why we gather together to chant together? Why? And go deeper and deeper. So that's what ISKCON does. A little sharing. Some of you in this room, you know Rabindra Swarup Prabhu. Rabindra Swarup Prabhu, we were initiated the same day by Srila Prabhupada in New York. And we've known each other for a long, long time. And some have ventured to say, he's our best writer in ISKCON. Someone could argue there's a better one. Many people feel he's our best writer. Those of you who have taken the disciple course, you probably are familiar with that little pamphlet that he wrote that's the Founder Acharya essay. He's the author. That gives you an idea. He's now GBC emeritus for various reasons, his health and his age, and he wanted to dedicate himself to writing. So I spoke with him about 2 weeks ago about something else. But I asked him, now that you have the time, what are you writing? And he told me what he's writing. He's writing a book on Shikshastakam. And he was describing his journey with the holy name, guided by Shikshastakam, and how he's entering into it as a sadhana. Then I reminded him of his interest in another book by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhajana Rahasya, that follows that same blueprint, that each of the verses of Shikshastakam take us to the highest stages of love for Krishna that Lord Chaitanya wanted to give. It's a map of how to go the journey. It's like, talk to Adam. Adam, we met this morning, 17-year-old young man that's visiting the temple for his first time. And, it's a journey. Boy, it's been just even getting to this stage is a journey, what to speak of the rest of the journey. But keep on going, and the journey is, as we spoke about this morning, to be in the presence of Krishna and engage in eternal transcendental pastimes with Krishna in spiritual form. That's quite a journey. And this entire Shikshastakam is a map, how to conduct the journey. So that's what Rabindra Swarup Prabhu was writing about. So I shared with him, I'm going to be speaking about this at the Festival of the Holy Name really soon. I want to read your book when your book comes out. Besides, you're just a wonderful writer. He's very, very serious about chanting. He's not a kirtanier so much. He can't play mridanga like some of our young devotees can play mridanga. He can play mridanga in, rudimentary way, but he's absorbed in the holy name. So the musical part is not his forte. Absorption part is his forte. So this is a little promotion on the importance of this subject that we're going to be discussing. For those that want to be with Krishna or want to go the journey of getting closer to being with Krishna, these messages are very important. So this session and then the next one, the evening session, it's two parts of the same, just taking Shikshastakam 1 and breaking it into its different parts, 7 different parts. So we'll spend some time taking one from the sadhana stage to the perfectional prema stage, and important messages in between. So fasten your seatbelt. The oxygen mask will fall from the ceiling if you start to get, you need some extra air. It's a wonderful beginning of the journey of the holy name, Maha Mantra. So we'll chant it together. Many of you know, because in our temples we chant it regularly each morning. Cheto darpana marjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vidharanam vidyavadho jivanam anandam bodhi vardhanam pratipadam purnamba prasnaptadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So rather than reciting the translation, we're going to go through one by one these 7 excellences. And the first one is these 3 words, Cheta Darpana Marjanam. Cheta Darpana Marjanam. We know the Marjanam word because it's in our Mangalarti song, Mandira Marjana. The spiritual master is pleased when Mandira, that's the temple, Marjana, cleansing or cleaning the temple. Because when you clean the temple, you clean your heart. And when you chant the holy name, you're cleaning your heart. So that's Mandira Marjana. This is Darpana Marjana. Darpana means mirror. The mirror of the heart. Or it sometimes is translated in different ways. So we're going to go through some of those other meanings. One of the gifts that Krishna has given Mukunda Datta is he's scholarly in Sanskrit. So he'll have fun in a different way than all the rest of us about exploring what the different shades of meaning or implications of the word Cheta. It's important. It's the first line, Cheta Darpana Marjanam. So here's an image from the web of a lady cleaning a mirror. It's an advertisement for a cleaning agent. But probably in the 1950s or something, advertisement. And the chanting of the holy name is the cleaning agent. And Cheta is what is being cleaned. And the dust is what's being cleaned from the Cheta. So we're going to take a look at some of the ways. What I did was I just put in the word Cheta in folio and came up with some different, how it's used. There's many, but here's some. So just to give you a variety of how the word Cheta is used. So there's 5 here. The first one is Uddhava. Some of you don't know who Uddhava is. Uddhava is Krishna's dearmost associate outside of Vrindavan. His associates in Vrindavan are his dearmost associates. Outside of Vrindavan, the most excellent associate of Krishna, Uddhava. His very dearmost associate. And the use of this comes in Canto 3, Canto 3, Chapter 2. It's where Vidura, some of you don't know who Vidura is. Vidura is the uncle of the Pandavas. The Pandavas are Arjuna and his brothers, and their uncle, their father's brother, is Vidura. Vidura went on pilgrimage. And in the course of going on pilgrimage, one of the holy places he went to was Vrindavan. And lo and behold, in Vrindavan, he saw Uddhava. Uddhava. How nice to see you here in the forest of Vrindavan. And then seeing Uddhava, he immediately thought of Krishna. He even somewhat looked like Krishna, complexion and features. But he's dearmost, so he started asking Krishna, what about Krishna and Balaram and all the associates of Krishna and so forth and so on. And then Uddhava went into a trance. He hit his Krishna button and he lost external consciousness. According to Prabhupada's purport, he went to Krishna. He was with Krishna in the spiritual world. But he struggled to come to external consciousness to do some service for this exalted devotee, Vidura. And he speaks for 2 chapters about Krishna, non-stop. And the first section is he's explaining his feelings, Chaita, his heart. And Uddhava knows Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it pains his heart very much when Krishna performs Leela that ordinary people think he's not the personality of God, he's an ordinary person like us. So that's the context. Now here's Uddhava speaking. Lord Krishna begged pardon from his parents Vasudeva and Devaki. Krishna returned from Vrindavan back to Mathura. He destroyed wicked Kamsa, killed Kuvayapita and the wrestlers and the whole thing. He showed his divinity. And then he went to the prison where his mother and father were, and he's offering an apology. Mom and Dad, I'm really sorry. I left Vrindavan. I left Mathura because I was afraid of Kamsa. So, oh Mother, oh Father, please excuse us, Krishna and Balaram, for this inability. We have been unable to serve you because we had to get out of here. We were afraid of Kamsa. All this behavior of the Lord gives me pain in my Chaita, his heart. Because ordinary people think, yeah, he was afraid of Kamsa, so he split. Krishna he showed his divinity. Anyway, he's not an ordinary person. But Krishna spoke like that to his mother and father because of their particular relationship with Krishna. He spoke that way. Please accept our apology. We were unable to serve you. We were afraid of Kamsa. This gives me great pain. Chaita, pain at heart. That's the first one. Next, Canto 3, Bhagavatam. Lord Brahma is offering prayers to the personality of Godhead Vishnu for the potency to create the universe, because that's his service. So we all have some service. Sometimes we have to clean the floor. Sometimes we have to sing. Sometimes we have to perform arti. Sometimes we have to arrange a festival. Someone has to organize everything. Somebody has to sit at that registration table and smile and help you register. Everyone has some service to do. And to do some service, we require capacity from Krishna to do. So the original preceptor of our sampradaya knows creating a universe, you can get proud. Even if you have the potency, you can do it. Close your eyes and you can do it. It's really easy to get proud. What to speak of do it without mistake? Because what happens if Brahma makes a mistake and does something wrong? You can't have that in creation. So he's praying to Lord Vishnu for freedom from his chaita, his heart, from the potential of taking ownership of the act of creating. I did it. Think about it in terms of your particular service to Krishna. Brahma prays, I pray only to engage in his service in the creation of the material world, and I pray that I not be materially affected. The Sanskrit word is shamalam, or material affection. I don't have feelings that I'm the doer by my works, for thus I may be able to give up false prestige of being the creator. I don't want my chaita to be like this lady here that's got the mirror that's dirty. I want the mirror to be clean. I want my heart to be clean. I don't want to be contaminated by the doership mentality when I'm cleaning the floor or performing the arti or organizing the festival or cooking down in the kitchen for everybody's lunch, or thinking, oh, I'm sacrificing for everybody because I'm in the kitchen instead of hearing the class, or whatever somebody might feel. Pride and doership, chaita. It's the mirror that's dirtied. He's praying to not have a dirty mirror. Then the next reference is in later on, where in the third canto, where the four Kumaras, some of you don't know who the four Kumaras are, they're the first praja or offspring directly from the body of Lord Brahma. After he creates the universe, here come the four Kumaras, and they're going to travel here and there and throughout the creation of Lord Brahma, and they make all their way to gates of Vaikuntha. And when they get to the gates of Vaikuntha, like little children, they want to go wherever they want to go, and the gatekeepers say, sorry, you can't enter. To enter Vaikuntha, you have to have pure bhakti. And you're little kids, you can't come. So they became angry and they cursed the gatekeepers. Lord Narayana, the Lord of Vaikuntha, came, and they had some exchange. And now the Kumaras are apologizing to Lord Vishnu for losing their temper, for cursing his two servants, the gatekeepers. And they say, O Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just so long as our chaita, our hearts and minds, are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet, not just their hands or their legs or other limbs of their body, but their hearts and their minds. Thus, our words will be made beautiful by speaking of your activities. See the image, again, it's like a 1950s image, but they're praying that the contamination is removed from their ceta. We just want that one situation, that our ceta is cleansed. And just be in this mood of being in the service of your lotus feet, so that when we speak, our speaking is beautiful in glorifying your activities. All of this is just to give some indication of what the word ceta means, that Lord Chaitanya says the chanting of the holy names does it. It cleanses those things from your ceta, your heart, your mind. And two more, and then we're finished with this slide. Later on in that same third canto, the first Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, has three daughters, but one of the daughters, Devahuti, has heard from Narada Muni about a great sage, Kardama Muni, and hearing about the qualities of Kardama Muni, she indicates to her father, Swayambhuva Manu, when it's time for my marriage, I would like to be married to Kardama Muni. So when the time comes, Swayambhuva Manu brings his daughter to where Kardama Muni is engaged in the forest in the process of meditation, the process of the age of Satya Yuga, meditation on Vishnu. So the introduction is made. Here's my daughter, and please accept her in marriage. She wishes to be married to you, and you're a qualified Brahmana. And he indicates, Lord Vishnu said I'm supposed to say yes. He came here and told me you're going to be coming in a few days, and I'm supposed to say yes, so I say yes. I'll certainly marry your daughter. Lord Vishnu said, she's as qualified as I am. She will be a suitable wife. So he gave a yes answer. I'm putting it in simple terms. And then he became silent. And seeing his pure consciousness exhibited through the facial features of Kardama Muni, Devahuti's ceta became very attracted. Her heart became attracted. Here's the verse. The sage Kardama said this much only and then became silent, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind or ceta of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage. So they're not married yet, but he's basically said, I do. I'll accept her as my wife. And his qualification is so exalted, just by seeing the countenance of his face, she begins to meditate on the pure devotion that he has for Lord Vishnu within him. Not just he's handsome. Her mind became captured. Ceta. Then last, later in this chapter, Lord Kapila, who becomes the son of Kardama and Devahuti, he's explaining to Devahuti Sankhya philosophy, and in Sankhya philosophy he's describing ceta. And here, the context is it's the 24th element, or it's contaminated consciousness. It's the mirror that's dirty, or the light that's filled with smoke. So you don't get the fullness of the light. Get the idea? The stage in which consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature, chaita, is called conditional light. But when the same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. So, what we want is a clean mirror, or consciousness that's not contaminated or materially affected. And the holy name achieves that. Chaita Darpana Marjanam. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and lifetimes. One of the things that Borijan Prabhu says in his Japa retreat presentations, imagine a mirror that has 3 miles thick of dust. You got a lot of Darpana Marjanam to. We've been inattentive, we've been neglectful, we've been materially attracted for too long. And now making a U-turn going towards Krishna, it takes some scrubbing. It takes some effort, and ultimately it takes the power of the holy name and our willingness to receive that power of the holy name. The chanting of Krishna's name is a purifying agent that cleanses our hearts of envy, the root cause of our descent to this world. And other bad qualities we have since acquired. Lust, greed, anger. So lust, greed, anger aren't the root, it's the product of the root. And the root is we have a bad attitude towards Krishna. That's the root cause. There's an image depicting it. That's us. There's the spiritual world. Here's the cloud of material energy in the vastness of the spiritual sky, and we're walking away from Krishna, heading into enjoying separately from Krishna. Here's the verse of Bhagavad Gita that expresses it. Chapter 7. O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities, arisen from desire and hate, raga and dvesha, or icha, dvesha, desire and hate, enviousness. So our regard for he who is actually the enjoyer, Krishna, we have some dvesha, we have some hate or bad attitude. We want his position, we want to be the enjoyer. Why not? He can be the enjoyer sometimes, and I should be the enjoyer sometimes. It's only fair. That's not the position. We're not the enjoyer, but we wish to be the enjoyer. And as a result, we come to the material world, and one of the things we get is a material mind. And there's effects. I don't know if you can't see it so well, but down in this corner, this is a mirror. Down in this corner, that's the rim of the mirror up here. And that's the mirror that's dirty. And the dirtiness of the mirror of chaita starts with icha and dvesha, ignoring Krishna. And then we get this dirty mirror effect. So the chanting of the holy name is the cleansing agent. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It cleanses the heart. And when the heart becomes cleansed, then Krishna appears in the heart, and the holy name appears in the heart, and our consciousness becomes changed. Chaita Darpana Marjanam. But so that's the Chaita part. What's the stuff that has to be cleansed? Well, it's Dvesha and its corollaries. Here's a very nice reference from one of the Puranas, Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, where a king, he's identified there as a Kshatriya Bandhu. Bandhu means the son of, or the fallen son of a Kshatriya, who became really, really sinful, wickedly sinful, terribly sinful. And he realized, I'm in a problem. So he went to a Brahmana, what can I do about my sinful condition? And the Brahmana gave him some things to do to rectify his situation, and then said, if you cannot do all this, I'll tell you something else, which is easy, but you have to do it. And the Brahmana says, I cannot do all that you said, because my mind is chanchala, flickering, very fickle. Tell me what can be done using my body and words. You can't be lazy with your mind, but you may have to start with doing something external. And so the Brahmana said, oh son, whether in hunger, thirst, or falling down, while standing up, lying down, departing, or coming, sing the name of Govinda. That's something you can do. Now eventually, and not only is something you can do, but you have to then control the mind. But it starts with cleansing the mind. Chaita Darpana Marjanam. And there isn't something better. Besides, if you can't do the other things, there's this one. It's actually the best one. It's better than anything, everything else. There's a nice reference in the 6th canto, spoken by the Vishnu Dutas. This fellow down here is about to die. His name is Ajamila. And he was a good person that became a bad person through bad association. And at the time of death, the agents of the Lord of Death, that's these fellows, Yamadutas, they came to take him away. And he screamed when he saw them. He screamed the name of his son, who he just happened to name Narayana, the name of the Supreme Lord. So the agents of Narayana came. And in the course of the dialogue between the agents of Narayana and these fellows, the Yamadutas, the Vishnu Dutas said, by following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, sinful men do not become as purified as by chanting once the name of Lord Hari. So let's do it. Hari, Hari! Pretty good, huh? We did it twice. Point is, very powerful. Now, we can be resistant because the dust can be too many miles thick. But the power is certainly there. And then in the more mature stages of chanting, not only the external dust can be removed, but other features of the mind that are the byproduct of turning away from Krishna can be relieved also. And one of them that's mentioned is fear. Fear can also be dissolved by the power of bhakti. Now, how does fear arise? Fear arises, this is described, I like this verse. Many of you have heard me speak on this verse. It's one of my latest favorite verses. Bhayam means fear. Bhayam tatriya viniveshita ksyat ishadapetasya viparya yo smritihi. So, thinking of the time, I could easily spend a lot of time just speaking on this verse, but we'll move on. Here's the translation. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as the material body because of absorption in the external. External illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity thus turns away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own constitutional position as a servant of the Lord. This bewildering, fearful condition is effected by the potency for illusion, called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should engage unflinchingly in the unalloyed devotional service of the Lord under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master whom he should accept as his worshipable deity and his very life and soul. Direct translation of the verse. So, bhayam can be dissipated through the chanting of the holy name. And bhayam can be dissipated by the awakening of, this leads us into the third excellence, but the awakening of a desire again to be in Krishna's service. And you turn your attention to Krishna through the power of the holy name, and fear is dissipated. So as one progresses in spiritual life, such qualities as having no fear, they're produced, or they're the byproduct of the holy name. But we don't try to cultivate fearlessness as much as we try to cultivate attachment, affinity, absorption in, attentiveness to the holy name. Just as devotional service isn't bhakti, isn't dependent on other things, so also the holy name. And eventually continue on this cleansing program, and one's spiritual identity becomes disclosed. Whatever that may be, part of the big adventure is, in this case, this is Gopakumar returning to the spiritual world and being embraced by Krishna when he returns. But the Svarup, or spiritual identity, may be something else. So that's quite a journey. That's just the first of the 7. I'm keeping my eye on the watch. So there's so much to say about all these things. The subject is very relishable. So, Chaitadarpanamarjanam, cleansing the mirror of Chaita. This is the power or excellence of the holy name. Then, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. The Sanskrit word has to be pronounced properly because we often hear about bhava, and that's not what this is. This is bhava. Quite different. Bhava is ecstasy, or the state of mind that's ecstatic. And bhava is something very different. It's material existence, and the misery of material existence. And the word Agni means fire, and Dava Agni is a forest fire, and Maha Dava Agni is a blazing forest fire, becomes extinguished. So this is a second excellence of the holy name. Here's a little explanation. This chanting of the holy name, Nam Sankirtan, extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. So expanding that. As the heart becomes purified, the first excellence, Krishna's name also protects sincere chanters from any further contamination from the worldly energy and those affected by it. So if we become cleansed, what happens if you go back into the material atmosphere? You need some protection, right? Keep chanting. The power of the holy name can protect you from that association. So mentioned here is a verse from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. Avritam Jnanam Etena Jnanino Nityavairina Kama Rupena. Kama Rupena. The form of lust. Dushparina. Analenacha. Lust is dushparina, never satisfied. Analena. It's like fire. Analena. Anala. Like fire. Never satisfied, it burns. The burning of material existence is mitigated by the process of chanting the holy name. The blazing fire of material existence becomes extinguished. That is, pure consciousness being restored, this fiery consciousness is dispelled. So what's that forest fire? It's material existence. It's a metaphor that's used commonly in Scripture and by our acharyas to describe the nature of material existence. There's a little story in this regard from Katha Upanishad. And who's the main personality? Anybody know? Besides Mukundadatta, the main personality in Katha Upanishad? Where's Hemangi? Yes, Nachiketa. It happens to be her husband's name, Nachiketa. I remember the first time we met and he said his name is Nachiketa. I said, where's that? He says, from one of the Upanishads. So I looked it up and he was very surprised next time we met. Oh, Nachiketa in Katha Upanishad. So in Katha Upanishad, there's a scene where Nachiketa is a young boy, a young Brahmin, and his spiritual master requests Nachiketa to get some fire from the abode of Yamaraj for a yajna. So very obediently he goes to the abode of Yamaraj. And when he gets to the abode of Yamaraj, he's really surprised. He sees all these living entities engulfed in raging flames. And then he requests Yamaraj, can I have some of those flames? And he's surprised by the answer that he gets. The answer that he gets is, that's not possible, because the flames are attached to the persons who are here. He said before these sinful people came here, there weren't flames. There was no fire. But when they came, they brought with them the fire. And in some cases, the fire brought them. Because the fire is, this is Mahadavagni, the connection between the Shikshastakam excellence. It's the sins. And the byproduct of the sins brings this fire. So those who are too sinful, fire engulfs them. The tribulations of material life. Maybe some of you are fortunate and you don't know what a tribulation is. Most of the rest of us do. I see some persons nodding their heads. That's the tribulation, or the fire of material existence. And it doesn't, the nature of the holy name is nirvapanam. It extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. Here's another nice example, something that I understood from preparing for visiting Ayodhya, because one of the scenes in Ayodhya is Vishwamitra Muni. He's taking Ram and Lakshman to go to Mithila, and they have to cross the Ganga. And when he sees the Ganga, Ram asks Vishwamitra Muni about the history of the Ganga. So he says the whole story. And how the Ganga came is having to do with the sons of Sagara. Sagara is in the line of Ikshvaku, as is Ramchandra, so one of his forefathers, his ancestors. Sagara had two queens, long story, keeping it short. One of them had, by the blessing of a sage, one of them had one son from whom the lineage would continue. The other queen would have 60,000 sons, and there would be no offspring from those 60,000 sons. But here's part of the reason why. Sagara wanted to conduct a particular sacrifice, a horse sacrifice. Indra got a little nervous. He took the horse, and he took the horse and hid the horse. And so the brahmanas who were arranging the sacrifice, they told the king, you better find the horse, because we're so far into the yajna. If we don't complete the yajna, you got a problem. You have to complete the yajna. You got to find the horse. So the king, Sagara, went to his 60,000 sons and said, please assist me. Show your worthiness as sons. Please find the horse. So they divided up the earth into 60,000 patches of earth, and they went and looked, and they came back and said, Dad, we can't find the horse. And Dad said, you can't give me that answer. You got to find a horse. Go find a horse. Go to the nether regions or wherever it is that you have to go and find a horse. So the detail, they had nails that were sharp as diamonds, and so they dug and dug and dug and dug and dug, and they went down to the nether regions of the universe, and there they found the horse in the ashram of Kapila. And they thought, aha, the horse thief, let's get him. So they took their weapons and they started to attack Kapila. Well, that was a bad move. And instantly their bodies burst into flames. Now, in the Bhagavatam, it directly says, Shukadeva Goswami, that commentary, Shukadeva Goswami says, there are some representations that are false, that is shown by this painting. From the eyes of Kapila, there's the horse. You can't count them all, but there's 60,000 suns over here. From his eyes came fire and they burned. Shukadeva Goswami says that's a wrong account. The fact is, because of their sins, the sin of trying to harm Kapila, instantly the heat of that sin engulfed their bodies in flames and they turned into a pile of ashes. So sins result in sinful reaction, and sinful reaction burns like fire. So the chanting of the holy name has that power to eliminate sin and the reactions of sin and awaken bhakti. Here's a nice painting for those of you that are not familiar. This is Sutta Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, after he heard from Shukadeva Goswami. And there's some sages assembled in Naimisharanya, a holy place, and he's speaking the Bhagavatam to them. And he speaks this particular verse. This is the very last verse of the 18,000 verses. It's like, the cherry on top of the ice cream, on top of the cake, on top of the whipped cream. And this is it. I offer, Sutta saying, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Hari, the congregational chanting of whose holy names destroys all sinful reactions, and the offering of obeisances unto the holy names relieves all material suffering. Sinful reactions, material suffering, totally relieved. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Last verse, 12th canto Bhagavatam. Now we're going to go back to Shukadeva Goswami saying essentially the same thing to Maharaj Parikshit. Very important. Other processes cannot be successful because even after following such methods, one takes to fruitive activities again, unable to control his mind, which is contaminated by the base qualities of material nature. Now, I'm going to make reference to this a little bit later, to yogis, persons that are accomplished in yoga, and they see it as a means of spiritual searching. We're all searching, or spiritually minded persons are searching. Without the holy name, or without the process of devotional service that awakens attraction for Krishna through his holy name, it's not going to be successful. One can go up, but one has to come back down again. And anyone that's done any of those other activities knows what I'm talking about. So Prabhupada wrote, "Stay high forever," to a particular audience with a particular purpose in mind, but take shelter of Krishna in the form of his holy name. We'll see this message again. I'll remind you. So, but there's one solution. Downpour of rain. This Prabhupada would often speak like this when describing this verse. When there's a big blazing forest fire, what can bucket brigades or even whatever they have to stop forest fires? Nothing. Nothing, nothing. But one thing, downpour of rain. So the downpour of rain of the mercy of Krishna in the form of Nama Sankirtan makes it possible. It's a nice slide, huh? It moves. You can find some interesting things on the net. So, this is a similar prayer. Lord Brahma, our creator of the universe and the preceptor of our sampradaya, offering prayers to Krishna in Brahma Samhita. He does this in different places, but in Brahma Samhita. Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam, emphasis on bhakti bhajam. This Govinda minimizes or nullifies the reactionary influence of the devotee's past deeds. Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. So this verse is not just the holy name, but the holy name awakens other forms of devotional service. So starting with the holy name, the whole gamut of Bhagavad Dharma or devotional service to Krishna. Now, last on this section is a nice reference from Bhakti Sandarbha. It's a writing by Jiva Goswami describing the process of devotional service. And he indicates here that in the maturing stages of chanting, deep faith arises in the heart, deeper and unfathomably deep as we advance in Krishna consciousness. Here's the translation, Bhanu Swami's translation from text 272. By performance of kirtan, one attains faith in the Supreme Lord, far greater than the faith attained by meditation in any other spiritual practice. Again, by meditation performed in the Satya Yuga, one does not attain the same deep faith in the Supreme Lord. And then he quotes from Skanda Purana. In Kali Yuga, the great devotees worship the Lord by performing kirtan. Jiva Goswami comments, these words of the Skanda Purana glorify the performance of kirtan, which brings great faith in the Supreme Lord. The Lord, who is very merciful to the fallen souls, does not reveal any spiritual path better than kirtan. So join the kirtan and get this Bhava Mahadavagni benefit and all of the other benefits progressively. So quickly, cleansing, diminishing, eventually eliminating the tribulations or the Dhavagni of material existence just from kirtan. Then comes the third excellence, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vidharanam. Chandrika, besides a soap product that comes from India, Chandrika means moonshine. Chandra is the moon and Chandrika is moonshine. And Vitaranam is expanding or spreading. So the Kairava, the white lotus, is of good fortune. Shreya Kairava, that's this Shreya Kairava, is the white lotus of good fortune, expands in the moonshine, the Benedictine moonshine. So at night, I've seen it. It was a nice experience to see it, like to not just hear about it, but see it. In the morning, the closed lotus starts to open with the appearance of the sunshine, and it becomes full bloom. And as the sun sets, the lotus closes. Then again the next morning, the sun comes and the lotus opens. And then at night, the lotus closes. So during the night of Kali Yuga, the Dark Age, what happens to the lotuses? There's no light because it's dark. But the good thing is the holy name. It serves as moonshine, just as the Bhagavatam serves as brilliant as the sun, the full moon of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Similarly, expands this white lotus of good fortune. So in different cultures, a lotus is symbolic of different things. In this case, it's good fortune, Shreya Kairava, the white lotus of good fortune. So the rays, this is of the benediction moon, that's Nama Sankirtan, gives rays of a benediction moon, then expand the petals of the white lotus. You got to pay attention because these are just short phrases, so the words are really important. Understanding the subtleties of the meanings of the words. It's where the beauty lies, because it's poetic. It's a metaphor. The same word Shreya is used in Brahma's prayers in the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 14, one of the early verses. Shreya Sritim Bhaktim. Brahma says that this bhakti, devotional service, is the best. That Shreya Shritim is the best. We've heard it before, now it's being said again. It's the best path of self-realization. And I'm a little sensitive to the time. I'm supposed to end in 20 minutes and I still have some slides to go. Question. Devotional service is a benediction for us, and that devotional service is the lotus, the white lotus of good fortune. So why isn't it the white lotus of good fortune is giving us benediction, instead it's the moon that's giving us benediction? Clear? We're very fortunate to be engaged in devotional service. So why is it speaking of the moon as the source of benediction, instead of devotional service as the source of benediction? Well, there's two ways to answer that. One is devotional service awakens because of the holy name. The holy name is a call to Krishna to be engaged in his service, and when we hear that sound properly, the white lotus of good fortune opens. So the benediction is the white lotus of good fortune because of the benediction moon, or the metaphorical moon, the benedicting rays of Nam Sankirtan. So another way of saying the same thing is because they're so intimately connected, the benediction of one becomes the benediction of the other. They're inseparable. This is benedictory and that's benedictory. We wouldn't be engaged in devotional service if it weren't for the process of hearing. We'd be engaged in serving something. We wouldn't be engaged in devotional service to Krishna. So that's the white lotus of good fortune that's expanded by Nam Sankirtan. I'm not doing very well with time. I'm in anxiety to cover the material. So I think I'll just move a little bit faster. Here's Nachiketa again. And it's continuation of that discussion where Yamaraj, that's Yamaraj, by the way, the Lord of Death. And that's the Brahmin boy, Nachiketa, hearing from Yamaraj, who patting on the shoulder instead of something else, treating him nicely. This is another image of Yamaraj, by the way. So, Shreyas cha prayas cha manushyam etas. Translation, Yamaraj says, the wise reject the prayas and choose instead the shreyas, this bhakti, that which is permanently beneficial. The foolish choose the prayas, short term, with its resultant conceptions of gain and material acquisition of fleeting pleasures. These two terms, nice to learn Sanskrit from Prabhupada, Shreyas and Prayas. There are these two terms, Shreyas and Prayas. There's lots of terms, but there's two. Long-term benefit, short-term benefit. Children like the short-term benefit, and mature persons understand long-term benefit, and they strive for long-term benefit. And Shreya Uttama is devotional service. So Yamaraj is saying to Nachiketa that the wise accept the long-term benefit, Shreyam Bhaktim, and they leave aside the temporary and the conceptions of gain of the temporary and acquiring fleeting pleasures. So here's a third excellence of the holy name, bringing us to this stage. Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vidharanam. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. Chanting awakens Shreyas, pure devotion to Krishna, the soul's dormant propensity to serve the Lord with love. And further chanting revives the loving devotion which qualifies one for the greatest good fortune, Krishna's association. We heard about that this morning. Here it is saying it again. And we're only at excellence number 3 out of 7. I think I'm going to end because of the time. We'll try better this afternoon before Namayagya to complete. So why are we doing this? That wasn't the reason. We're doing this because Lord Chaitanya came to give a gift to the world. The gift of love for Krishna as it's found in Braja. Braja Prema, he came to give that gift. And he's giving the means to get from where we are, which is far from there, to get there. And he's giving the holy name and the appreciation of something that's far greater than gold or any other material acquisition, the prayas kind. He's giving us the ultimate kind. For those that are thoughtful, will appreciate Lord Chaitanya's gift. And he's elaborating here stages of bhakti. These are just, as we see coming up in this afternoon, this is just the beginning stages, the anarcha nivritti stage, the cleansing stage, all three of these. And very quickly it's going to start moving into the higher stages of bhakti. So, but we have to get these in place so that our attraction for Krishna, the clean mirror, the clean consciousness, can then become attracted to the object, Krishna, and our relationship with Krishna, and so forth. Appreciating this is a big part of this topic this morning, of why we'll never know what real happiness is unless consciousness becomes cleansed and the grief of dealing with the tribulations of life subside, and the attraction for Krishna becomes at least perceivable, reachable, or cognizable, something that devotional service awakening and becoming fixed in our attraction for wanting to be in service to Krishna eternally starts to blossom. That's this white lotus of good fortune that expands by Nama Sankirtan. It'll help us appreciate the gift that we've been given so we can cultivate it carefully. In fact, that's what this whole weekend is for that purpose. Okay, so any discussion? Yes? Up front here.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you very much. Maharaj, the holy name is not different from Krishna.
Holy name is not different from Krishna.
Yes. So, for a mind, it is very difficult to perceive.
Say it again, slower.
For a mind.
The mind?
Yeah. It is
the mind. What about the mind?
Yeah, for a mind, it is very difficult to perceive the sound vibration as the
Not
object.
different. Yeah. It's different for the mind too because it's covered. But as the covering becomes cleansed, then we can. We're seeing through this lens of contamination, so it's not perceivable. When the mind becomes cleansed, then the spiritual mind is left. The material contamination is removed. Then it becomes possible. So initially it requires some faith. There's some experience, but it's not the non-difference experience exactly. Some experience. Something's happening. And Scripture says, and it's right, and it feels right, but it's preliminary. We can't get, at least conceptually, notionally, in principle, the name and the person are non-different. At least notionally, with faith, and going forward with that faith, operative faith. Doesn't require a mental adjustment. It just requires purification, and then we'll feel it. We'll understand it. That you're getting to excellence number 4. We just finished number 3. Vidya Vadho Jivanam. You'll see. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah?
I was recently reading, I think a week ago, it was Gundicha Marjanam. He also has a picture of
Yeah.
it. And I was reading the purport. One of the purports there, Srila Prabhupada speaks about cleansing the heart.
Yes.
And Sri Bhakti Siddhanta
Yes.
elaborates.
Long
Beautiful.
purport.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And something that my mind was going to was many years ago, during a festival of Holy Name, he was speaking about the Anartha Nivriti process is like climbing up a mountain, and then past the Anartha Nivriti, it's rolling down the hill. It's easier. The heavy lifting is during the Anartha Nivriti process. What gives someone the sustained ability to keep reaching out, keep trying, keep moving forward during the Anartha Nivriti process, to pay attention to Krishna's holy name with the heart?
Faith and good association. And regular hearing. Good association will naturally provide that regular hearing, but regular hearing can be you're, off somewhere and just hearing. But faith, good association, regular hearing. The regulation of quality hearing, where you're, the operative principle is I want to know what's beyond all this show of the material energy. What's the reality that's beyond this? That's the light inside, the spark, the jigyasu, inquisitiveness. And then bring the resources. Good association, quality hearing. It has to be something inside, otherwise it won't continue. It can't just be, something outside superimposed. You do because you're supposed to do. Your question is also addressed in upcoming texts. So you'll see that when we get there. Anything else? Yes?
I still don't have a very clear understanding of the Chaita.
I tried.
With the heart and the mind and the consciousness, all of that.
It's
one.
Mukunda Datta, you want to help me? Yeah. He's a Sanskrit scholar, he'll tell you. You going to respond? You have the microphone? Oh.
The same word can take on a different context, take on a different shade of meaning according to the context. So, but in Sanskrit land, the idea of mind and heart are not really easily separated. And just as in English, the idea of mind and intelligence are also not separated. So when we talk about purifying the mind, we're talking about purifying the heart. They're considered to be the same thing.
I was giving contexts so that you and everybody else could understand exactly what he said. There's shades of meaning. So Mahaprabhu was saying Chaita Darpana Marjanam. So my take is it can mean all those things, depending upon the context. The sullied consciousness or the mind or the heart, the mirror that's covered by what? The mirror is the Chaita. Then the what is the contaminations, and then there's contaminated consciousness. But actually, consciousness is pure, the heart's pure, and the mind is pure. But there's this other thing that we're not able to access it, so that other thing has to be cleansed, and then we can get pure consciousness. I quoted verses to specifically show that. So it can mean all of those things, depending upon the context. He's still got that question mark on his forehead. I know the look. Anything else? Okay. Yes, at the front here.
Hare Krishna. So I have one question like...
One question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, why this mantra is only given the name, I mean the title as the Maha Mantra? Because, I mean, we have like...
So many mantras.
Yeah, I mean, so many names of Lord, like in Vishnu Sahasranama, we have 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, and like Prahlad Maharaja was chanting another Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Yeah.
Why only this mantra is having the title of Maha Mantra?
I got the question. Take the microphone. Well, a very simple reason to say why is because the Upanishads say it. This is the Maha Mantra. There isn't another mantra in this age as effective as this one. Then you can say, well, why does the Upanishad say that? On what, that's the authority saying it. Why does the authority say it? It's gifted. It's something that there's a variety of reasons. One of them I touched on, but I'll touch on it again. And that is, there are certainly other mantras, but other mantras are to be chanted silently, or they're to be chanted. The effectiveness of those mantras will be only when they're received from a Diksha Guru by the process of initiation, because they're that type of mantra. However, this particular mantra doesn't have that restriction for Sanskrit rules that I mentioned. Therefore, anyone and everyone qualified, unqualified, faithful, unfaithful, anyone, everyone. I'll tell a little story. Want to hear a story? Lunchtime. I'll make it short. Prabhupada was visiting in Chennai, in Madras, one time. And when Mayavadi sannyasi came to visit him, and Prabhupada agreed to see him. And those that know a little bit about how Prabhupada would interact with Mayavad sannyasis, he wasn't so gentle. He was very firm. So this Mayavadi sannyasi came and was asking Prabhupada, why did you translate your Bhagavad Gita this way? In such and such verse, there's no mention of Krishna, and you put Krishna in the verse, and you speak of the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra in the purport. And Prabhupada said, are there other examples? And he said, yes, in chapter 7, this, da-da-da-da. Are there other examples? Chapter 8, da-da-da-da-da. And this went on for a whole hour. Now, Prabhupada was normally fire with these people. But, at the end, he finished his, I don't like your Bhagavad Gita commentary for these reasons. And then Prabhupada smiled and said, so now distribute prasad. And they gave him prasad and off he went. So after he went, the devotees said, Prabhupada, why were you so tolerant with this fellow? He was criticizing your Bhagavad Gita. He said, didn't you notice? He chanted Krishna's name for one whole hour. Maybe the next time he'll come, he'll start appreciating the presentation of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And that's a person who had no faith. I mean, a scholar, a sannyasi scholar of Mayavad philosophy, but just by his saying Krishna's name, because we couldn't have asked him to say Krishna's name for an hour, he wouldn't have done it. But there he was doing it, even without faith. Therefore, there's special. Certainly, any one of the names, Vishnu Sahasranam, they're accessible, and many people like chanting Vishnu Sahasranam. So why not that one instead of Mahamantras, like your question? There's some special benediction by the Supreme Lord for this age, spoken of in the Upanishads, Kali Sanartana Upanishad, specifically in that sequence, saying this is the Mahamantra. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in that sequence of this Mahamantra, he chanted and induced others to chant. He said other things, Hari Haraya, etc. There's other songs that he would sing, names of Krishna, but this one in particular. So your question is why? He endorsed the statements of the Vedas, saying this one is very special. It's given some special dispensation. Doesn't mean people that chant Vishnu Sahasranam, good luck. There's purification, any names of the Supreme Lord. Especially this Mahamantra is there with special benediction or beneficence by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, confirmed in the Vedas. So we accept. Okay. Is lunch ready? Yes? Huh? The message hasn't come, it's not ready, so you probably is ready. She's really enthusiastic. One last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So this question was asked by someone to me. Why we chant why Hare Krishna comes first and Hare Rama comes second line. Since some people chanting like Hare Rama, so